Welcome to the Stoa. The Stoa is a digital campfire where we cohere and dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of what's happening now. Okay, check-ins. Yeah, I'm feeling kind of like giddy, playful. Every time I'm in Joe's presence, I feel like I want to be a holy fool. So, and that's, I mean, that is the best compliment possible. So welcome to the Stoa. I am Peter Limberg, the steward of the Stoa, and the Stoa is a place for us to cohere and dialogue about what matters most at the knife's edge of this moment. And today we have my very good friends from Human Systems. I've taken one of their courses, their introductory courses, and it was fucking brilliant. I loved it. I think I understand most of it, and I want to learn more about it. So that's why I'm eager to get the Human Systems people here to kind of like display their magic and share it and spread it as far and wide. And if I can help that, then it's an honor for me to do it. So I don't really know what the session is going to be about. I read the copy, and then me and Anne were like just kind of like talking when I was sort of in a dark night of the soul last week. So I don't really know much about what's going to happen in this session, but I have full trust that it's going to go well. So that being said, I will hand it over to Anne, who's going to be the MC for the evening, and she's going to explain what's going to happen today.
I'm unmuted. Hello, all of you people. I feel a bit nervous, and then I just looked at all the pictures and I see so many people I haven't seen in a while, and now I feel really happy. Still nervous, but also happy. I'm Anne. I'm with Human Systems. Maybe Joe, Nathan, and Sarah, you can wave. Yes, the people who are waving right now. We're with Human Systems, and we're doing a thing tonight. We call it Live Action Redesign, which we've done a few times before in our kickoff calls. It's the beginning of our class, usually, where we kind of show what everything put together could look like. And we've never done it in such a big public setting, which is exciting and a bit nerve-wracking. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of what's going to happen in the next 70 minutes. Joe's going to tell you a few things about Human Systems. Sarah's going to tell you a few things about how you could be here. And then Nathan and I will interview one volunteer. If you submitted ideas of what we could redesign today beforehand, and we read through them, and we will interview one person and kind of articulate what the value at the core of their story might be that might have been really difficult to live by. And then Nathan and I will disappear. And Joe and Sarah will guide you through two different games, depending on your preference tonight. After which we come back and show you what we came up with. Then there's time for Q&A, and then we go sleep or have day, depending on the time zone we're in. Joe, what's Human Systems about?
Hi, everybody. This is cool. Some of you know, so I apologize. I'm going to take a few sentences to tell you stuff you already know. We work on redesigning things around values. Most of our society is designed around metrics, goals, norms, complying with the way that people usually act, or like norms like professionalism, or goals like maximizing profit, this kind of stuff. And we have a kind of a shortage of systems that are designed around values. And often the systems that are designed around goals or norms are, they block our values. They make it harder to be creative or playful or honest or however we actually want to be with the people in our lives. So that's what we teach, is just this simple thing about figuring out what people's values are and how to redesign the systems of our lives, like organizations, birthday parties, family dinners, up to social networks. And earlier today, I helped redesign a difficult family dinner arrangement and a social network. but according to values. So that's what we do. And that's kind of what we're going to demonstrate today. And we'll also play a few games that just give you a kind of a clue about how we do that. Hopefully the demonstration will be, you'll be like, wow, I wouldn't have thought about how to redesign that myself. And if you do have that reaction, then we can help you learn to redesign things the way we do.
Cool. I guess I talk now. So I want to give a couple of things to keep in mind while you're here to help you get the most out of it, because this is actually going to be pretty participatory. The first part, we've taken a couple submissions before the call and we've chosen one person that we're going to do a redesign for. And so the human systems members will be asking them some questions to get the information they need to do the redesign, but we'll also be asking you, what sort of questions would you need to do this redesign? Because afterwards you're going to get the chance to split into groups, and one of the groups is going to try their hands at doing redesigns too. So the first rule of this is to keep your brain on. Think about like, what information would you need to know to redesign systems? And also maybe keep in mind a system of your own. And just kind of call this to mind right now. Like, if you had expert help, what situation in your life do you feel is not letting you live in the way that you want to? Because we have this really different world with quarantine. And I was just on a call with Google earlier where, you know, some of the people were like, you know, eating more than I want to, or I'm kind of having trouble having meetings where I can feel really connected to people. Like, what's one thing you're struggling with? And you can kind of use that as a reference point as we play these games and do these redesigns. And the other part of this is we get a unique opportunity to be creative on this call. So think about, you know, you might have your solutions for how you usually do things or how you think about them. And maybe just start questioning, like, what are other ways of doing this? As you hear the questions that are being asked, what if you apply those to your situation? And if you're in the group that's doing a redesign, what are different ways to think about it? It's not first thought, best thought is great, but we're actually looking for your second and your third and your fourth thoughts as well. So I'll hand it back to Joe, I think.
It's like hot potato. Hand it to me, Joe. Hand it to me.
Passing it to Anne.
Yes. Okay, I got it. Okay. I'm gonna keep it. This was 100% of our pre-talk. We're done with the pre-talk. Now we do the actual thing, which means that Nathan and I are gonna interview one of you. And we got a few submissions, and we just checked in with Lachlan. I don't actually know how to say your name. Is Lachlan right?
Yeah, you said it correctly, Anne. Yeah.
Cool. And Lachlan's up for us interviewing him tonight. Thank you for that.
No problem. You're welcome. Did you want me to go ahead?
Maybe just like, give me like 20 seconds to gather my thoughts around this. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the thing that I submitted was just a story that happened to me a couple of years ago when I was working with about 10 people in a small business in Melbourne. And I discovered when I was working there, like that one of my colleagues was moonlighting and trying to, you know, him and two other people in the business were planning to steal a whole bunch of clients and set up her rival business. And I felt really angry and betrayed and disappointed, particularly at one of the guys that was doing this, because he was one of my friends. So I confronted him about it, and I said, you know, I don't think you should be doing this. I think it, you know, it hurts me and it hurts everyone else in this business. And yeah, I just don't think you should be doing it. And he made me feel like I was the person that was betraying him, because I was threatening to tell the boss. And if I did that, then I would be harming him, because I would, you know, be causing him to lose his job. So he made me feel like I was the one that was being unfair, and that it wasn't right for me to do that. So he said, you should, it doesn't really matter because these clients are really small that we're trying to poach, and the bosses are underpaying you and everyone else in the business, so it doesn't matter. Like, why are you doing this to me? It's really unfair. Like, don't threaten to do this to me. So I was put in a really awkward position because I valued my friendship with this guy. Previously, I really enjoyed hanging out with him, but he really made me feel just kind of awful because I wanted to preserve my friendship with him. But I also didn't want the business to fail and didn't want that to have a negative effect on me.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Should I tell you like the rest of the story or like?
Yeah, actually, what happened? What did you do?
Yeah. Well, actually, like I ended up doing absolutely nothing. I really deliberated over it for a long time, but I just did nothing. And I regretted not doing that because eventually the whole situation unraveled because he sent an email to this other guy, Chris, who was the other co-conspirator, and he accidentally CC'd everyone in the business and revealed like the whole thing. So it was, like basically the shit hit the fan, as you'd say, like as we say in Australia, and his whole cover was blown, and the situation unraveled anyway. So really, like what I realized that I should have done at that point is just like I should have told the boss anyway.
You just pointed at like several things that you kind of felt. It's a bit of a conflict. There's like a lot of people involved and like a lot of feelings towards a lot of people. And some of the things that I picked out was something like angry towards your friends. Mm-hmm. And then something sounded like maybe like a bit disoriented or not quite sure what to do.
Well, I was, I felt betrayed and disappointed.
Did you ever think afterwards about what you wish you had been able to do in that situation?
Yeah, I really wish that I had the courage and the integrity to actually report the situation to my boss, because I really valued my relationship with my boss, and I thought that he put a lot of trust in me. And I really felt that I had kind of no backbone. Because I didn't have the confidence to actually to say what was going on.
If you feel like you had some kind of courage and integrity in that situation, and you maybe would have like gotten up your courage to talk to your boss, and your friendship with your friend is still kind of in shatters, and maybe it doesn't even really help, would it have been worth it?
I think it would have been, because I think that I could have salvaged the relationship with a friend, even if I did turn him in, actually, because I think I could have said to him, okay, I'm giving you an option. You can stop doing this anymore, and I won't report you to the boss, or you can keep doing what you're doing and I will report you to the boss. Like I think I should have given him that ultimatum and then made it his decision as to what he wanted to do.
I'm Nathan. Hi.
Okay.
Can you say more about like the way that this company was set up? Like you had clients, they were run, like the boss is the guy that started the company and then hired you guys on to help deal with these clients that got more and more. How did that work? How did this get built up?
Sure. Yeah, the company was started by 2 guys, and then it grew to 10 people, and it was a marketing agency. So we had like quite a large number of clients, and you know, the guys set up a very elaborate scheme to try and steal the clients, where they would register domain names that were very similar to the client's domain names. So then they could send emails to the business pretending to be the clients. So like they could spoof email addresses, so it looked like it was an email coming from the client, but it was actually an email from an email address that had like 1 letter different. So they created these quite elaborate schemes to try and trick the owner of the agency into thinking that the clients were leaving the agency when they weren't. They were actually like, you know, they were going to this other business that they were setting up on the side. So they were telling one thing to the clients and saying, "Oh, hey, it's all right. You know, the business here is closing down, but you know, we're starting up this new business. You can go over here with us now." And meanwhile, to the boss, they were saying, "Oh, we lost this client. Oh, you know, here's the email. You can see."
And was it like your friendship to to these guys who, like, kudos for the scheme?
Yeah, it was a very elaborate scheme.
Was it your friendship with them that seemed to have like blocked you from saying something about it, or were there other factors involved that like made you think?
So the one guy who was the ringleader, it was just like, yeah. So the one guy who organised basically the whole thing, his name was Chris, and and I never really liked this guy anyway, but so Chris started the whole thing, and then he tried to recruit other people, my other colleagues, into the scheme as well. So it wasn't my relationship with Chris that I cared about. It was my relationship with one of the guys he was conspiring with. So, you know, this guy, I'll call him Tim, like he, you know, like it wasn't really his idea. He was just going along with it. So I didn't consider him as guilty as the guy who organized the whole thing, but yeah.
Was this like, I wonder, like in this workspace, was this like the one time that you kind of felt like you weren't able to like show up with this courage and integrity, or were there other moments that like were also difficult?
No, I always felt like I was able to work with integrity and honor and tell the truth. This is the first time that I've encountered that. Yeah.
Okay, so it's one of it's because of this friend, essentially.
Yeah. It was just, you know, I was just worried about losing this friendship because, yeah. And the other thing that made it quite difficult is like, you know, my friend said to me, "Oh, hey, you know, this isn't a big deal what I'm doing, because the bosses are underpaying you and they're underpaying everyone else in the business. They're making all this money." And because I didn't have access to, you know, any of the finances, I didn't know whether I was being underpaid or not. So I had to kind of, you know, I was questioning that and going, well, maybe he's right. Maybe I am being underpaid. Maybe I am being screwed over by the boss here. So maybe, you know, maybe I should consider this. But I didn't want to.
If you could go back now and talk to yourself when you're in that situation, like what advice would you give to yourself?
I would say you don't have to worry about losing your friendship with this guy, because the friendship was already lost anyway. Like I felt betrayed by him, so I didn't want to be his friend. So I really didn't have anything to lose by telling the boss what was happening.
If you, I mean, did you know that at the time? So I'm kind of wondering, what would you say to yourself if you were to like try to, maybe this is a different question, but if you were to like sort of advise yourself, like were you in a situation like that right now? What kind of thing would you try to focus on? What would you like to pay attention to figure out what to do?
What would I pay attention to? I guess I would ask myself what I value more, whether I value my friendship with my work colleague or whether I value having a secure job and a secure income. Or whether I, maybe not to do with the secure income thing, maybe whether I value being able to tell the truth.
You just mentioned like 2 or maybe 3 things that are kind of like hard of living with this courage and integrity in that particular situation.
Mm.
One of them is maybe something like doubt, maybe they're right. Maybe you're actually being screwed over by your boss. Another one is like some kind of like mourning something that's already lost.
Yeah.
And then the third one is maybe like some kind of like weighing of different importances.
Mm-hmm.
If these 3 things had worked out, would you have been all right?
Well, actually, so what are the 3 things that you, like the...
Maybe your boss is really screwing you over. Maybe they are right.
Yeah.
Not quite seeing that like a thing is already lost.
Mm-hmm.
And trading off different interests, different goals.
Yeah. Well, I never found out whether the owners of the business were screwing us all over. And I actually did manage to salvage my friendship. So yeah, I guess if I had found out that it was true and that the bosses were screwing us all over, then I guess I would have been okay with it. I don't know.
Maybe like the thing I'm curious about is if all of that had been easy with like some magic trick, would you have been all right? Would it have made it possible to have the courage and integrity that was difficult? Or is there more?
What do you mean by like a magic trick? Like,
if in that situation, those 3 things by some solution had been possible, like you're absolutely sure that you're not being screwed over. You're fully aware that this friendship is kind of lost in some way, and it's clear to you that the job is more important than the friendship. Would that have been enough for you to feel at ease in courage and integrity?
Would it? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because the biggest thing I was worried about was the friendship, and I didn't believe that the friendship was lost. So if I knew that I didn't have to continue being friends with this person, then, and I was totally comfortable with that, then yeah, I would have had no problem living up to that value. At least I think I would. It still would have been a very awkward conversation with my boss, but I think I would have had the courage to do it.
I just had to look at there's like some of the questions in the chat. I just like check them out.
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
Cool.
Okay. Yep.
Cool. And one of them is, what about the relationship with your friend made it hard to confront him honestly?
That's a good question. Why couldn't I confront my friend? Yeah, I guess I needed to be friends with him more than he needed to be friends with me, because I was, it was a difficult period of my life when I was living in Melbourne. I didn't have that many friends. And I was going through a transitionary period where I'd broken up with my girlfriend, and so I had like a dramatic loss of friends. And yeah, I really worried a lot at that period of my life what other people thought of me. That's always been a part of my personality, that I I care, I worry a bit too much what other people think of me. Certainly more than other people, I think.
In this situation, what was the worry? How might they see you?
What was I worried about Tim seeing in me?
Yeah.
How he might see you.
Oh, how he might see me. I'm not sure. Like, yeah, like I guess I didn't want people to see me as desperate or lonely. Well, actually, if I confronted him, I was worried that if I confronted him, then he would see me as callous and cold-hearted and mean, because I was, potentially causing him to be fired. So yeah, I didn't want to be thought of as callous and cold-hearted. Yeah, when in fact that's kind of what he was being. It is what he was being.
Are there times when you were like in a situation that called for this kind of integrity or courage that you managed to pull it off?
Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. Whoa. I mean, I can think of situations where, like, I've been, in my 20s when I was like I can think of situations where I've had friends who are really drunk and they wanted to, like the situation where my friend Michael was really drunk and he wanted to follow me to this bar that I was going to, and I just, wrestled him into an Uber because because I just didn't want him to, to continue to hang out with me on that night. So I can, yeah.
Cool.
That's
Can you tell me more about, like, in that situation, like what kind of things were you paying attention to? What were you focusing on when you decided, like, I'm going to wrestle you into this Uber, this isn't happening anymore?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about myself, really. Like, I wasn't thinking about, like, what he could do to other people, like whether he would offend anyone else. I was just really sick of his company. And so, like, it was all just about me, really. Like, I was just like, I do not want to see you anymore, like, go away. I think that's what made it easy, is I wasn't thinking about what other people, I wasn't thinking about his effects on other people. I was thinking about his effects on me.
Can I take a stab at what one value in this cloud of important things might be?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like somewhat about boundaries, or like about something like taking care of yourself with people you love, acknowledging that they might not be acting as they wish they might have acted, or like with a slight hint of forgiveness or something.
You mean like I wish my friends had I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm sorry.
No worries. That's good. It means it's probably not it. So here's the thing I'm trying to do. We just kind of like talked a bit about your story and the emotions that came up in it, and kind of what was difficult, what was the situation like. And there's a bunch of different kinds of information we're trying to kind of filter out of that, which you'll see again later, how they come back. But there's one very specific kind of formula, like thing that I'm looking for. And that is kind of the thing that's important in the situation that's difficult. And I think we're very close to it. Like there's something about integrity, about honesty. I think there's something about like boundaries, or like asserting yourself, some kind of assertiveness. And I'm mostly just kind of like trying to zoom in on like the particular nuance of it, like, or what exactly is this kind of assertiveness that was hard here. And Nathan, do you have a question on?
Yeah, is there like, so is there somebody that you think would have handled this kind of situation well? You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, do you know somebody specifically, not just like theoretically, but do you know?
No, like so the guy that I bumped into the taxi was my best friend. My second best friend would absolutely have, if he was in my situation in the business with Tim, he absolutely would have told the boss, because he.
How do you, so like beyond like sort of what he would have done, like how would he have approached that situation? What would he have been like focusing on?
How would he have approached that situation?
What do you admire about like how he approaches situations like that?
Yeah.
What would be a specific question?
I really admire that he doesn't care what other people think of him. And it's he has no real care for the consequences. Because I worry about the consequences all the time, so much that it stops me from actually doing anything. So
it's kind of something around like doing what you think is right without regard to consequence or other people's opinion of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Here's what's going to happen next. Nathan and I are going to disappear. We're not actually going to disappear. We're going to turn off the camera, mute ourselves, and turn the sound off. And we're just going to do things. And you all are in good hands with Joe and Sara. And what Joe and Sara will do with you, they will explain to you now. Shook.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Wow.
So we're gonna play while they redesign, I guess maybe business, which is kind of a cool challenge. Like how would you make, this is something that we can all think about while Anne and Nathan work. Like how would you, if you were starting a business and you didn't want stuff like that to happen, you wanted your employees to be able to do what's right, to have this kind of integrity and so on, how would you design that business differently than that business was designed? That's kind of the big problem that we'll be solving today. And I think it's a really good one, and a good like showcase of what we do. So while they do that, we're gonna split it up into two groups, and Sarah's gonna run something and I'm gonna run something. I'm gonna run something emotional, and Sarah's going to run something cognitive, because I'm an emotional person and Sara is a cognitive person.
Yeah, that seems true. I run authentic, relating, and emotional games as a business, but sure, Joe. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is, I would love it if you'll see at the bottom of your screen there's a little reactions button. So if you want to be in the emotional group, I want you to do the clap sign. And if you don't have the clap sign, I'm going to assume you're going to be in my group, which is obviously the better group, which is the cognitive group.
Oh.
And we're going to see how this goes. If you can just put clap in chat. So give me a second. And Joe, could you do me a favor and read off the names that have claps next to them? That would help me a lot.
Yeah, sure. So Steve in the UK is clapping. There's a lot of claps. I feel very popular. Peter is clapping. Mel is clapping. Bilal, he says click more. I don't know what that means. Chris is clapping. Salma Hoff is clapping. Paul N is clapping. Travis Mann is clapping. Megan Kavanaugh is clapping. James Baker is clapping. Steve UK is clapping. I said that before. Niels is clapping.
Okay.
Joachim doesn't understand what it means to clap. We'll have to teach him. Brandon Feingold is clapping.
Yeah, clapping is joining the group that's going to be working on emotions, an emotional game, and I'm going to be doing something that's more like actually redesign the system yourself.
Bilal, Tanya is now clapping. Joachim decided to clap.
Last.
Yashar is clapping. And I think that's it.
Great. All right. The rest of you are with me. And okay, so I'm going to open
Leah Keem might have been clapping. And Lily Higgins. Sorry, there's some stragglers.
Okay. I think I've got most of you. Okay, cool. So I'm going to open, y'all are going to be in breakout room 1. And I believe that you're going to be back in about 20 minutes. So Joe, we've got a little bit less time than was planned originally.
Great.
22 maybe, so like half past. All right. So your rooms are open and the rest of y'all will stay in here with me.
Awesome.
Cool. Hey, y'all. So we're going to try something, and this is going to be a bit of an experiment. In full disclosure, I joined Human Systems rather recently, so I'm still learning their practices as well, although I do some similar things on my own. And we've never tried to have a group just do a redesign on their own without going through the class. But I thought it would be a really cool experiment to have us do the same thing that they're going away and doing. And so I'm going to teach you one more of the tools that Human Systems uses, and then I'm going to break you into groups of about 4 people each to try your hand at a redesign. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to do something called structural features. And that is, if you go to the notes doc that Bilal posted, I'm just going to post this in chat again, because this has notes on it, which you might be able to use for your redesign. One of the things you'll also see in there is a structural features document, which I'm going to put in chat as well. Cool. So basically, like when we do a redesign, the first thing that we try to do is identify what happened in a situation and then what value the person was holding. Because everyone like cares about different things in a situation, right? Like for Lachlan, what his value was basically like, I would say it is something like staying committed to this like higher ideal that he holds, regardless of the consequences. But for someone else, the ideal might be something like making sure that they stay true to their standard of integrity, or respecting friendship, or, you know, there's many different ways, and to do a redesign, we need to understand what we need to keep in mind. Because if we do a whole redesign and it doesn't actually keep in mind that value, like, then it's not going to be effective for him. It might be effective for whoever did the redesign. So the other thing that helps us do these redesigns is thinking about what are the features of the situation that are unique. So the chart I posted gives some of the chart I posted gives some of these, and there might be others as well. And so what I want to invite is we're going to try to put in chat what are things that were characteristics of the situation with Lachlan that could maybe be changed? An example of one might be that the interactions were just going on between him and his coworker. So we call that, instead of being the size was like, you know, a small number of people. So 1-to-1. Imagine what the situation might have been different if instead Lachlan like gathered a whole group of his coworkers to talk about it together. That's one thing that could be changed. So one structural feature is group size. Are there any others? Feel free to put them in chat if you're kind of understanding this at all. Anonymity of who submits the report. Like, what if it had been public? What things could you change? Lack of clarity and transparency. So yeah, something like who holds the information. Any others? They don't have to be from this list, but yeah, norms around who you can ask for advice. What I love about that is like, what were the roles of people on the team? And was that clear? Like, did you have a confidant you could go to, for instance? Expectations about value alignment. Were there norms? So you see, like, as we give these, there's like lots of different things opening up. The type of hierarchy. Could you go to the managers easily, for instance? We don't know. The depth of the relationship. Maybe the depth of the relationship with his friend versus with other coworkers or with other people in town. Like a redesign could be make friends outside of the company and then come back to the situation. So you're not going to lose. So losing that friend isn't as big. Great. So what we're going to do now, and you can keep putting these in chat if you want to, but I'm going to put each of y'all into groups of 4 people. And since some people have kind of been dropping in and out, you might be in groups of 3, that's fine as well. But each group is going to, when you get into your group, choose one feature that you'd like to work on and try to spend as little time as possible choosing a feature. And then you're going to see if you can redesign the situation based on changing that feature. So for instance, if the feature that you're choosing, and try to choose, you can try to choose something that's a little bit easier. So like ownership of the company, definitely one, might be a little bit harder to change. Something like, you know, depth, what I was just saying, like you have this person is a good acquaintance. So where else could you find depth of friendship if it wasn't with that person? What might be a redesign? Or can you change the depth of friendship with this person or make yourself less dependent on them? What's the quality of relationship with other people? And you're not going to have all the options, obviously, because you're not Lachlan, unless you have them in your group, in which case you kind of win. So you can kind of like make up some of the details if you don't have them, because part of this is just really a chance to try your hand at this. And you're going to have about 10 minutes or so to try doing a redesign. And my suggestion is for the first 4 or 5 minutes of that, just brainstorm. Like all the things you can imagine changing about this feature, all the creative, you know, ways you can play with it. If you want to step outside the feature and like, you know, suggest some other redesigns, that's fine too. But I find the feature like helps frame my thoughts. So it's not just this big unknown. And then for the next 5 minutes, I'll send you a message when you can stop brainstorming, or if you've stopped before that, that's fine. For the next couple minutes, you're going to figure out which of those options might be best, keeping in mind Lachlan's value. So if his value that we've identified is doing what you think is right without holding in so high regard what other people think of you, like having what is right at the top, does that affect at all which sort of solution that you choose? And I'm going to put that in chat again, just so everyone has it handy and it's in this document. Great. You actually will have access to the chat and the breakouts. You won't be able, when you go into breakouts, you can still see everything that's been posted in chat thus far. But when you're in the breakout, if you post something in chat, the whole group won't see it. Only your breakout group will see it. So just keep that in mind. If you want to make comments that the whole group can see, maybe do it on the document. And when we'll come back, we'll give you a minute or two to share your redesigns as well. Any questions on this? I know it's a little bit complicated. And when you're in the group, you can raise your hand if you get stuck. Yuli, you had a question?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could just repeat the values again, and then maybe slight expansion on the idea of like the idea of not wanting to care so much what other people think of you. The idea that that's not a value, as Lachlan says, even though it still exerted force in his decision-making process, to me seems a bit wonky. I wonder if you could just clarify that bit.
Values are aspirational. So if the value Lachlan held was, I want to do what's right without regard to consequence, there was something that was blocking that value. Like he could hold it in the situation of like getting his friend into an Uber, but he couldn't hold it in this situation. So what we're trying to do is remove some of the impediments to him holding his value.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Yeah, great question. So again, you're going to choose one structural feature, and you're going to try to redesign the situation by changing that feature in such a way that it's easier for Lachlan to live by his value. Let's give it a try. If you get stuck, feel free to just raise a hand and I will pop in and help you out. So I'm just going to do a little bit of reorganization for a second, so please hold. And while you're holding, feel free to take a look at the chat and think about which of those features you might particularly want to fuck around with. Almost there. All right, you all should be getting invites to join the room, so feel free to do that. One of you's gonna have 4 people, or should.
Sarah, just jumping in quickly. We were in the room with, I think it was Joe, was it? I'm not sure, but there was 3 of us that got moved to like another breakout room for some reason.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me move you back.
It's me, it's Nils, I think it was Travis too.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Oh shit, sorry, I fucked this up. I have never tried to do this in quite this way before, and I just completely screwed it up. So give me just a second to fix that.
I'll throw our names in the chat box if it helps.
No, it's actually everybody.
Okay, no worries.
I tried to move people from the breakout room to the other one instead of the other way around. So everyone should be back in there now. Oops. Okay, so this is how we do it. I need to assign you all. There we go. That should do it. All right, did y'all get, oh, you didn't all get assigned. All right, let me make that happen. And we'll put an extra person in each of these. Perfect. Nils and Travis, did you get the invites back to the breakout room 1 with Joe? Oh, that's weird. It has you in there. I don't know how to re-invite you. So let me try to figure that out. Just a second.
Actually, there's a thing down at the bottom on my screen that says join breakout room. It
Yeah,
didn't send me
it
an
should.
invite, but let me
Can
do
you click that?
Yep.
That is weird. Can you do me a favor and oh, there we go. Anne and Nathan, are you back here? You're muted. Can I unmute you? Yashar, did you just leave and come back again?
Yeah, I had to restart my computer.
Okay, what room were you in?
The emotional, I guess.
Okay. Let me see if I can reassign you.
Can I actually go to the other one, please, if possible?
The non-emotional one? They're unfortunately already in breakouts, so
Okay.
you can go back to the first room, or you can hang out here until folks get back in about 6 minutes.
Yeah, send me to the emotional one, please, if you would. Thank you.
You are welcome to go feel your emotions if I can.
I'll do my best.
Are okay. You should be in breakout room 1. Okay, there you go. Bilal, I am so curious what this thing is. Hey, Natalia.
Hi.
Were you in the room earlier, or are you just joining?
Yes, I was just on my phone and I got into a breakout group, but then I got
Oh.
when I tried to turn the setting. But I was in breakout group 7.
Oh, okay. We're about to bring everybody back. Actually, I'm sorry that you got kicked out of that.
Okay, I'm excited to hear what everybody designs.
Yeah, same. I'm about to bring everybody back. So let me close the rooms, and we're gonna have lots of people popping back on. And I believe what we're gonna do is have folks report from the breakout groups first, and then have you give your redesign. You're gonna have a little bit less time than you thought, like maybe 5 minutes. Scott, I want a full report after this of what you thought. All right, welcome back, everyone. So the trainers are going to present their redesign, but first, I'd love to just hear a couple highlights. Anyone who wants to share from either room, we've just got like 4 minutes or so to take a couple of shares. So you can unmute yourself if you have something. Either muted. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll share something. So myself and Reese were in a room together, and we chose the feature of expectations around value alignment across cases. So like, how do you know what's an emergency state where you have to have a different orientation towards the balance of all your values? And we didn't come up with full-fledged solutions, but we identified some features that are worth thinking about of that feature. So one is that essentially, you might not be able to always hire people with perfect values, but you essentially want people to know their own values so you can have a transparent discussion around how value orientation is going to change during emergencies and sort of like during, more serious cases. And so, you could basically facilitate that. You could facilitate conversations with employees that allow them to understand their own value set and have that sort of like marriage process between them and the company going on forward. And then you could have an open and transparent conversations about what qualifies an emergency state, a state where people begin to have a different balance, an orientation towards balance between their different values. And there was a couple of other items, but I'll skim past them because they have less detail.
Nice. Thank you, Yuli.
So we were in the group that cheated and got Lachlan. And one of the structural features that we were looking at was group size. In this company, it was about 10 people and most of the contractors were basically working by themselves. And Lachlan said that it meant that it felt like he couldn't share his concerns with other people because he wasn't able to build up those relationships with other people in the company. And so we were proposing that if instead of most contractors working by themselves, they worked in a group of 3, that when this problem came up, he would have this group that he had already built quite a lot of trust with from working on existing projects. And he could have not only brought it to them and discussed it with them, but if they agreed, then they could be his allies in confronting the friend.
Beautiful. So let's get just one share from Joe's group. And if you all had other solutions you came up with around structural features, please feel free to put them in the chat or in the document, and then we'll have our trainers present theirs. Someone from Joe's group? Joe, you can call on someone if you...
Maybe Lily or Tanya could go because they both seem to have a good time and they didn't talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I got a lot from Lily's share. And she was noticing that there are sort of these external things that she was doing when she was trying to seem to be in alignment with a value that she had, versus when she was just wanting like to be that way on her own terms. It felt like, oh, like it was less of an active thing. I noticed it seemed to be more about sort of creating the conditions in myself for that value to emerge. Whereas when I'm trying to seem like I'm that way, it feels more like I'm performing. I'm external. It's more of an active external, but could be performing. Yeah.
I'll just say a word of explanation, which is like our exercise, for those who didn't do it, was about looking at the difference between how we act to seem certain ways, so like norms that we comply with, and how we act on our own terms, which is often revealing of our personal values. So it was an exercise about starting to look inside and see where we're operating from our values and where not.
And ours identified the features of a situation that might be blocking the value, and then had people do redesigns changing different features. So now I want to bring our trainers back, Anne and Nathan, so that they can give us some ideas of what they came up with, and you can see what a redesign looks like.
Yes, is Nathan here? Are you here, Nathan? Oh no, he's not. I'm here. Oh yeah, cool, perfect. So we just this was like a pressure cooker.
Jeez.
Whew. And we did the following. We had basically like a few questions in mind as we thought about Lachlan's story. I'm gonna quickly recap it because you did other things in between. Maybe you had amnesia and you don't know anymore what I'm talking about. So Lachlan worked in a company, relatively small, 10 people, and one of his colleagues, was also at that time was a close friend, actually one of his closest, had a scheme to kind of like steal clients from the company, which sounded like a bad idea, but also kind of detrimental to the feeling of safety in his job. And he found it difficult to speak to his boss about it and didn't, and later wish he had. So here's what I did. The value that we kind of articulated out of that was, scrolling up, where did I put it? Here, doing what you think is right without regard of the consequences or what other people think of you. And I asked myself, what's really hard about that? Why is it difficult to do for Lachlan? Why would it be difficult to do for me? And I'm asking that because by looking for the points that are really difficult, I can then think about how to make them easier. So basically I look for the breaking points. Why are people unable to do this thing that they really care about? And in asking that, I found a bunch of things. And some of them are kind of surprisingly long-term. They don't actually have anything to do with the situation of talking with your boss or your friend, but they start like years earlier. So here I go. I'm scrolling down again in my incredibly long document. So one of the things that's important to do is kind of like having a clear feeling about what is right for you. And that might involve questioning and improving your understanding of what is right, evolving it over time. And one little game idea that I had of how to address this is you could kind of like invite a few friends over for dinner, and together you hunt for moments of uncertainty, for things that you didn't quite know how to do, and you play them through together. And you just spend an evening thinking through the things that you were struggling making a call in, and figuring out together what a good call would have been for you to kind of take the intense pressure of the situation out and have more time to do the same thing with a bit more leisurely, low stakes. Another really big batch of stuff that's super hard to do about this value is reframing and building friendship, asking what is friendship about and how do I make the kind of friendship I really want to have in my life. And one thing in particular that I think I would find hard in Lachlan's situation is to keep a long and wide, blah, blah, blah. Here's the German coming through, long and wide view of friendship in mind. So both keep in mind, what kind of friendship do I want to have with this person over the next 10, 15 years? But also, what kinds of friends do I want to have in my life? And I think one way I would address that is to give Lachlan like an audio meditation, to meditate on what friendships he wants, and this process the sadness of not having that right now, and checking in whether he has hope to actually make that possible. Or talk to a friend who's 10, 15 years older and ask what friendships they really cherish and how they got them into their life. Whew, I talk really fast. Cool, I'm gonna skip these. And then I think another batch of stuff that's really hard is in the conversation itself to notice when Lachlan kind of gets out of what he thinks is right into some kind of other mode and find his way back. And this is like a gigantic batch of things that people find hard in a lot of scenarios. And I thought about the best way to fix that is to change the context of the conversation, which is my cue to pass over to Nathan.
Right. So Lachlan could have changed a number of things about how this conversation was taking place that would have made it easier for him to do what he thought was right, regardless of the consequences or what people thought of him. One of them is that there was a status thing going on. He was being approached as a co-conspirator against the boss. And so like, you are in the in-group here. And he could have named his agency, saying something like, that's a pretty strange move that you tell me about your coup before you've pulled it off. Like, you might be the guy who's trying to sink my job. Just to name that, like, he's not in this group. And he could have, there evidently seemed like these conversations were taking place in a really brief time. Like, people were kind of like just on the side talking about it. So he could have said, after having established his agency and removed himself from this sort of like co-conspirator role that he was being portrayed in, could have invited the other people who wanted to do this to a weekend getaway with all of the potential co-conspirators. And instead of the pretext of goals, which they had like, well, we can make more money, you're getting screwed, these kind of things, he could have changed that to be about a shared value. This weekend getaway is about how do we want to do business. So, and in that context, it would have been without being part of this conspiratorial group, having named his agency, having had a longer time to talk and making the conversation, not about what are we going to do, but how do we want to be in business? It would have been a lot easier for him to speak to what he thought was right. This would have just like made it like cleared a lot of the obstacles out of the way for him. So yeah, those are what we call structural features. You guys worked on too, but that's what I came up with for that. Yeah. And now I hand it back over to Sara or Anne, I guess. That's all I have to say about it.
I'm gonna hand it to Joe, actually, to close us out with a little bit about how to do more of this.
There's a lot of handing going on. I have hands. So this has been a little demo of what we do. Something that I would love to, if we had a little more time with that redesign, I would love to try to wrap those hard steps that Anne mentioned of living by this value and those structural feature changes that Nathan mentioned, and wrap them up into a business structure, like, so that if you were starting a business with a small team, how would you end up having shared values, like Nathan was saying? How would you end up making these hard steps easier for your employees or for everyone working with? And if you were able to do that as part of your business, as part of the structure of your business, then you would have a business in which the value that Laki wanted to live by was easier in that business. And so that's kind of what we do. We figure out how to make values easier to live by in different kinds of social systems at different scales, ranging from, like I said, family dinners to capitalism and democracy. And if you would like to do that, like do these redesigns and learn all this terminology and this kind of stuff, we teach classes. Or if you know something like an oppressive social environment, we're also starting to get into consulting, or at least thinking about it. We have a whole bunch of alumni. We've got 300 alumni that have taken our classes that are ready to help redesign systems that are suppressing values in different ways. So whether you want to learn it yourself or feel like you could use help from this kind of redesign, you can get in touch with us. And I guess Peter will send you links, and Sarah will send, we have like a form that you can use that she'll drop into chat. And we'd love feedback about this event. Actually, this is the first time that we've done it in front of an audience like this. And we'd love to do it again. And if you have something that now that you've seen how it works, you're like, oh, I'd like to see how they would redesign, my situation, you can fill out that form, and we'll do this again soon. And maybe we'll pick your situation. Anything I forgot to say?
I'm dropping the feedback form we just talked about into the chat.
And I'm putting a link to Human Systems organization. If you click through that, you can find a form to sign up for the class to register interest and have a conversation. And I also want to name, this is the first time that we've done this sort of thing outside of the class. So definitely feedback welcome. And yeah, thank you so much for showing up and participating in the games and the redesigns.
Very
Maybe
cool.
Thank you for choosing my example.
Lachlan, how did we do? How was it for you to have this happen?
Oh yeah, it was really humbling. It was really interesting. I particularly liked Nathan's suggestion to name that I was the out group, like, because I didn't realize like they were trying to make me feel like, position me as a co-conspirator, and that I was obligated to go along with the whole thing as well. I never thought about that. So thank you, Nathan.
All right, so I'm gonna jump in because I want to respect the time of the space. So I'll make some closing announcements, but I just wanted to thank Joe, Sarah, Nathan, and Anne for coming in today and kicking some ass. As I mentioned, I took the Human Systems course. I highly, highly recommend it. It was like 9 sessions of fun and adventure, and it's very hands-on. So definitely go on that website link, Human Systems, and check it out. And then, Joe, there's a wisdom gym that's forming here at the STOA. We have recurring events. We have about 12 so far. I would love for Human Systems to have something on a regular basis, a weekly basis. We could do this every week if you want to. And so you have my full trust, and it's open for you to explore and experiment and have fun. Oh yeah, and I would also recommend, because I love Joe's writing. Check out his Medium page right here. There's a lot of richness there. So yeah, next events. We have 2 coming up today. We have Shame Breakthrough Boot Camp with AJ Bond. And I think he's doing like a narcissistic spotlight event again, where everyone's like cameras goes off except one person, and we just kind of like talk about what we don't want to be seen, how we want to be seen. It was delicious last time. And then we have that's 6 p.m. Eastern time. And at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, we have an existential dance party with Colin Morris. That might get changed to Sunday, but if you're interested, RSVP, and if there's a bulk of people, then we might keep it. Yeah, and we have my boy Tyson's in the crowd today, and he says there's something called Freestyling Through a Pandemic. Tyson, could you unmute yourself and let us know what that's about?
Sure. Freestyling Through a Pandemic is a freestyle rap experience open to all levels of skill. So even if you've never freestyled before, come and deepen your relationship with uncertainty, with musicality, with rhythm and poetry, and with each other. I've been having so much fun in these spaces, and I really enjoy being surprised by myself and others when we just open up and we let the words happen and we let the music flow through. It's been really wonderful, and I look forward to flowing with you there.
Yeah, and that's on the website, thestoa.ca. You can RSVP do all that, and that's a really fucking good event. If you ever want to like put yourself at the nice edge, you just like, oh yeah, it's really good, really good. Check it out. Lastly, the STOA is based off a gift economy. I'm viewing it as a gift for all of us to use in this time of need. If you're inspired to give a gift to the STOA, just go to the website, thestoa.ca, and check out the gift economy at the end of the page. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for coming out today.
Thanks, Peter.